Hi, everyone. I'm excited to be here. I hope everyone's doing well. I start my slide like this. So I don't know if you've been here, but this is where I was a few years ago. And every decision that I find I make is often based in FOMO. And so I moved out of this because my friend in 2019, my friend Manpreet Mand, who is a family law lawyer located in Surrey, conveniently just off the 99. She bought a building. Well, not a building, an office. I want a building. She bought an office, and I had such intense FOMO, like, best described, I guess, jealousy. I was jealous of the fact that she had bought this building or this office. It's gorgeous. She has gold doorknobs. Right? It's like a med spa for family law. It is a beautiful building. And I've done lots of big things in my life, right? I can speak on stage. I formed my own law firm. At one point, I raised $6 million for a university. And yet I was so burned out, I couldn't take care of myself. I couldn't sleep, couldn't eat healthy food, didn't want to exercise. Like I would do those morning trudges, and that was as much as I was willing to do. And like I couldn't see how I was getting out of it. And I had a lot of excuses. So, I had a lot of work to do. I have ADHD. This is true. I have ADHD. It's also hard to make any kind of habits when you have ADHD and you forget things all the time. So there was that. I have kids. That's a good excuse. I have lots of kids in my house. Some of them aren't even mine. I had too many clients. I had not enough clients, because you know how that goes, right? You got too many and then you don't have enough, and it's just a whirlwind. And I was tired. And now I realize I probably was burned out. I was probably under psychological distress. I may have been a little bit depressed. But the fact of the matter was I wasn't going to go to the doctor because I didn't have time and I was too tired. And at most I would show up occasionally at the doctor's office. He would write me a prescription for something I would forget to take. And it didn't help. Nothing was helping. I was just burned out. So hi, I'm Del. So I'm a lawyer. I own a small firm, and I like to talk to people, a bit of a storyteller. And I'm just an ordinary human. So I am more Samwise Gamgee's walking with you on this journey than I am medical professional or right? I'm just here with you. I'm not Gandalf. I'm not going to lead you on the way. I'm just here with you. And I'm with a lot of you, because this is some of the results from a study that was done in Canada, and maybe we're different, but I kind of think Canadians are very much like Americans. And what they found, they surveyed a large number of Canadian lawyers, and they came up with some of the numbers, these numbers. So 7% of women lawyers reported feeling symptoms of psychological distress. So psychological distress is not a clinical diagnosis, right? That's burnout. And you might think of it, it's some of the symptoms of anxiety and some of the symptoms of depression. Doesn't mean you're going to become depressed or anxious, but a lot of lawyers are depressed and anxious, right? But it's like a warning sign. So when you're getting burned out, for many people, it won't take much to push you into depression. It won't take much to push you into anxiety if you are already teetering or living, as I think many of us do, in this perpetual psychological distress. And almost no one in our legal system is immune to this. There's a few people. If you are a white man, a partner in a firm, and you are healthy, you may not experience this. But all it takes is a health scare, and you have the same risk factor as everybody else. So something about our profession is leading us to experience this more than the general public, because the general public's numbers are like 13% for anxiety, and I think it's like 16% for depression. right? So either we are coming to this field like this, or what I think, that it's law doing this to us. Okay, so if there's 67% of us women experiencing burnout, there's a whole bunch of you who we know what we need to do, but we can't actually do it. I put this slide up to emphasize how bad it really is, right? Because this isn't stuff that yoga is going to work out, right? It doesn't help. You can be mindful, you can do all those things, but you can still have this. So the study, and I encourage anyone who works with younger lawyers, because lawyers with less than 10 years experience, they found were at high risk. So I always share this with younger lawyers. Lawyers are suffering, and it's filled with quotes like this. Some of the quotes actually are talking about suicidal ideations. We also have a high rate of suicidal ideations. It's scary. And this one, it's like family law is beyond exhausting. Right? Beyond exhausting. Like, why are we doing this work? Because she cares about the clients? But the part that really gets me, this one, it's, I'm often ashamed to say I'm overwhelmed or need help and don't have the energy or the financial resources to access the supports I need. That is why I do this work, right? Is that shouldn't be the case. We need to have a better way. And the fact that she feels personally responsible for this, like we've trained ourselves to think that it's the individual causing these problems. And I'm going to show you that this study, one reason I love this study is it's not the individual. So there are factors inside the legal system that are causing some of our psychological distress, right? So she talked about, I don't have the finances to go to a therapist or to take time off. So that's one of them. Lack of resources. Hours worked. So you may have lots of money, but you may have no time because we set up our system so that we are working, 7 to 5. Oh, and then I'm going to run off to a CLE in the evening. This study, it was very eye-opening to me because I read it. They're like, hours of work. I'm like, oh, I'm pretty good with that. I don't work extra hours. And they're like, including legal social events. Like, because would you go to that mixer thing if you were not a lawyer? It is part of our job in many ways. They talked about compassion fatigue. And that's, for a lot of us, compassion fatigue is exhausting. Job insecurity might be a problem. And I think I would add into that even just the insecurity of our economy right now. So I think we need to take radical action. But I think this is a time for us to step up and do something different. And I have a quote from Yvette Dion, and she was talking about Black women, and you're going to see, if you look, who is doing the different stuff, it's often Black women, because they don't fit in the general system, and they've been experiencing more distress than other people, and they come up with different ways to do it. So Yvette said, and so saying that I matter, that I come first, that what I need and what I want matters, I think is a radical act, because it goes against everything we've been conditioned to believe. Right? So if we're going to do this radical act of saying, I matter, I want something, I deserve to finish work at 5 o'clock and be done, I deserve it. We're going to need a big vision, right? Like that FOMO vision. We're going to need a bad attitude because people won't like it when you say that you are leaving. It's 5 o'clock and I am leaving. And then I say we need to take tiny little steps because we often overreach. And there's actual research that says tiny steps will actually get you to where you want to go faster. Okay, so big vision. Let's start with the big vision. Lawyers on the beach, are you in here? There's 10,000 people in that. 10,000 of us in that Facebook group. 10,000 lawyers want to lawyer from the beach. So this is what I'm talking about when I say big vision, right? I'm not saying like, I'm going to bill 80,000 this year so I can hit 1 million. No, big vision. I want to have time with my kids. I want to coach soccer. I want to, write a book. I'm sure there's people in here that want to write a book, right? So you need a big vision. My big vision, I want time to do everything that interests me. A lot. Like, I like to craft. I work part-time at the library because I want to work part-time at the library. I like to speak. I do wills and estates law, like multifaceted. I coach U9 soccer. So that sometimes leads to, if you're not sure if you've created, do you have a big vision? Maybe look at this. So this is for a take-home in case you feel overwhelmed. But let's turn to this first page. Flip your page, and you're going to see a Microsteps worksheet. And the very first line, you'll see that I've written in mine, I want my time back, right? So that is my big vision. And it's nothing more than like a thought. So I want you, in the next minute, maybe not a full minute, but I want you to write something down. Do you have a big vision? Like, maybe it's as simple as like, I'm going to take cooking classes. I'm going to have time to do pro bono work. I want to, whatever you want. I want to rest. I'm so tired. I want to take naps. Right? I just want to not feel exhausted all the time. What is your big vision? Take a moment and write it down. I will be grading this. I know you like to perform. You can get an A for this. So write something down. And there is going to be a little tiny bit of participation. I know that we are mostly introverts, so it's not going to be painful participation, but I feel like it helps you implement. And there's a reason we're in the room, right? This could have been a Zoom call. I do this on a Zoom call. We could have done this as a Zoom call. So we're in the room with really smart people. Let's figure out how we can access the room, right? You came here for a reason. So find someone close. Just turn around and tell them what your vision is. If it's a weird vision, okay. But tell somebody what your vision is. Tell Taylor behind you. Okay, so we have our visions. I love the talking. So now you got a vision, you need a bad attitude. Is anyone going to challenge you on this vision? If you think so, write down, I need a bad attitude to do this vision. So we need to root this down. If you think that people are going to challenge your idea, I think you need to write something down. Okay, I have a very specific reason why I say a bad attitude, right? As I said before, sorry to anyone who doesn't want to hear this, but this talk is rooted in Black feminism. And Audre Lorde, so what she says, and you've probably seen this quote before, and I want you to think about the billable hour. And imagine going into a big firm and saying, we don't need to do the billable hour. And how many of these firms are just built. It's built into every piece of that firm, right? People make money off of the targets. Associates have to make a certain number or they're gone, right? So that is the tools we're talking about. That is the house we're talking about. And Audre, her full quote is, survival is not an academic skill. You didn't learn this at school. It's learning how to stand alone, unpopular, and sometimes reviled, and how to make common cause with those others identified outside the structures in order to define and seek a world in which we can all flourish. It is learning how to take our differences and make them strengths. For the master's tools will never dismantle the master's house. They may allow us to temporarily beat him at his own game, but they will never enable us to bring about genuine change. And this fact is the only threatening to those, and she says women, and I'm going to say lawyers, who still define the master's house as their only source of support, right? If you can't let go of billable hours, even though it is killing you, right? Like, all you can think of is, how am I going to get, they said I'm only billing 2 a day. I got to get up to 4. I have to do at least 4. I got to automate so I can get at least 4. Right? You're living in the master's house. Like, go do something else. Right? Put your needs first. Like, make a radical act of resistance. Right? Get a bad attitude. I don't care about billable hours. I don't care if I make partner. Well, if you're in a firm that, maybe I don't care about keeping my job. But there's going to be consequences to this bad attitude. I'm going to warn you. Right? I told my husband, I don't do volunteer work anymore. And he said, that's not a good thing. Why would you tell people not to do volunteer work and that you don't do volunteer work? I don't want to. Okay, a couple more nerdy things. You're in for it. This is just, you come to this session, we're going to nerd out. Two loops theory. So two loops theory talks about, this is, if you've done any trauma-informed law, they often talk about this work. And to me, it's really interesting because I never really thought of the legal system this way. So she talks about the dominant traditional system that is always decaying, right? People are still making money, right? We can talk all day about why the billable hour isn't great, but there's a lot of people making money in the billable hour system. There's even people who are servicing the billable hour system, like first responders, right? Your LSAP group has been set up to deal with the consequences of this as helping people to stay in this system. And then we've got an emerging system. So if anyone was here for Nefra's talk, she was talking about basically emerging systems, the anti-fragile. When Jack was talking about all those opportunities that are available, they're not in the dominant system. You're going to have to go outside to figure out how you can do things differently. So that's the emerging system. And the reason why I said that you'll find a lot of Black women there, people who didn't get employed in the dominant system, people who get pushed out of the dominant system, flow into the emerging system. So, in the emerging system, I forgot a good example. Hello, divorce. Right? Everyone remembers, do you remember the struggle she had? Yeah, go find Erin. Ask her how terrible it was to be part of an emerging system of trying to set up a different way to do it, to address access to law issues in a different way. And you'll see why you need a bad attitude, because, it was hard for her. Okay, so I believe that when you're in the dominant system, these are all baked into the system. And that's why, to me, resilience training is good, but it will not correct these. And in fact, that first study I talked about on the National Study of Mental Health Determinants, they looked at people taking individual action. So going to a mindfulness course, taking a boundaries course, doing all those things. And they found there's only a 5% difference between people who actively took part in those yoga classes and those people who didn't. The real difference was in removing these risk factors. So even if you choose to be in the dominant system, if you can figure out how to address lack of resources, work less hours, feel secure in your job, and somehow tackle compassion fatigue, then you're most likely a more happy lawyer. So then when I read the study, I had a little bit of a moment of, because I'm like, oh, that's me, because I create rat races. That's just what I do, right? And I was like, is this anxiety? Not. Okay, so if we know this, we know that we need to change the structure. You might be like, well, Del, I'm already tired. What are you asking me to do? What I'm asking you to do is a tiny step. And here's the research of why tiny steps actually work. So, research suggests that individuals have a very limited effect on their organization. And even if you are a solo firm, I'm going to tell you that I believe you're an organization and you're part of a larger organization, a legal system. So you really can only change 15% of what's going on. And here's a study. So it's Morgan and Zahar. Actually an interesting study. And what they looked at were big organizations trying to do momentous change. So imagine GE saying, I want AI in every area of our business. Because you know someone at GE is saying that. Ugh, they're poor lawyers. So you're trying to spread AI across the board. How do you do that? Like, do you implement big projects? Do you hire whole teams of people? Like, how on earth can we make change? Like, how can we take my little tiny law firm and change it so it's a healthy place for us to work? And they found that it occurs when individuals take action. So when your little firm of 5 people and every person makes a change, that's what's going to drive you forward. And when they talked about change, they said something that, one, you don't need permission to do. So if you have a receptionist and you're saying, hey, we want to make this a better place to work, she can only change something that's within her control and doesn't need more resources. That's what we define as a microstep. So take your big vision that you have and then imagine what is actually in my control and what thing can I don't need to ask anyone permission to do. That's my definition of a microstep. And maybe I would come out from under the covers. Okay, so what's your first one going to be? I'll give you a couple examples, and then we're actually going to do the work. Implement. Implement, implement, implement. Twice on Sundays. Implement. Okay, so my first one, I started eating protein with breakfast, right? But there's studies that say if you eat protein with breakfast, it will actually reduce your cortisol levels. And I met the head of the Lawyers Assistance Program in BC, and her goal is to get lawyers to eat breakfast. Like, black coffee is not breakfast. That's what she said to me, because that's what I was eating. And so you must eat protein for breakfast. I'm helping spread her gospel of breakfast. Okay, my other microstep, not a habit, because I don't really like habits, is that I implemented a system of red flags throughout my firm. And so in Clio Grow, you know how you can use the tags? So you can turn the tags red. And then I put down all the characteristics of a bad client on those tags. Right? And you would think that with like 1 or 2 flags, like I would be a normal person and not work with these people. But like I'm a glutton for punishment because there's one tag that says, makes racial slur. I had to put a tag in to remind me not to allow these people to work with me. And I still feel bad for these people. And like I have to look, I go in to like write the engagement letter, and then there are like multitude of red flags comes up. And then hopefully I don't work with them. But that is what I mean by microstep. It's tiny. Whatever you're thinking right now, it's too big. Go smaller. So, we're almost at the end. We've got 6 minutes left here as a group. We're going to implement something. On your page, there's a thing that says microsteps. I want you to come up with 3 microsteps. Right? Remember, these quick wins towards your goal will build momentum. And this is mental health, but if you want to do it about your workflows or automation, I will not give you a bad mark. Okay? It works for lots of things, but I want you to do it for mental health. Like, what tiny little things can you do? I'm going to give you a minute to write it down. Now, put a check mark beside it if you have the resources, like you could do it right now. Right? That's the kind of resources I'm talking about. You don't need to buy anything. You don't need to read anything, right? I had tags in Clio Grow. So if you have the stuff, put a check mark. If you don't need to ask anyone, you could just implement it today. If your accountant's going to get mad and you need permission, like your bookkeeper, that's not a step I'm talking about. Put a little check mark. And then I want you to put a date beside it. So when will you do this? Tuesday? Like Tuesday's good. Friday? Put a date down. Okay, we're going to move to the uncomfortable part. Don't leave me. It's not going to be that bad. So we've done this alone. Now we're going to find a partner, and we're going to coach each other on whether or not these are good microsteps. Okay? We've got some brilliant people in these rooms. I want you to use the brilliance of the room. If you are an introverted person, pick someone nearby. Where are my bold people? Bold people, put up your hands. Who is bold? Crystal is bold. There's a bold person. Okay, find yourself. Crystal, point to this lady over here. You guys are going to work together. Okay? In a moment, we're going to move. And I will know if this is successful because we're not coming back, right? We're not going to clap. I want this room to be loud and chaotic like I am. And then I will know I have done a good job. So thank you for having fun with me today, for bearing with me on these talks. Like, I really want you to take a microstep to implement. Feel free to come and chat with me if you're not sure if you've taken a good step. Okay, turn to your partner. Everyone start talking. Thank you.